I am Neil.
I'm Veronica. We fell in love when we were 16, and here we are talking about what life is all about for us. Thank you for joining us.
This is a Life Is podcast with Neil and Veronica.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Life Is with Neil and Veronica. And if you've been following along, you may have been wondering where we have gone, what we've been doing, what is up. So briefly, we just want to talk about where we've been, which is on a journey, I would say, of just, enjoying the chapter we were in, maybe the challenges that life threw us, whether it was sickness, whether it was injuries, whether it was this, that, or the other. And we really just wanted to make this a fun experience for Veronica and I. And we didn't want it to be something that we needed to do, but that we wanted to do. And where we were, we just weren't able to get to any conversations that were recorded, but there was more than enough conversations that we had. And so I think there is a lot of pent up thoughts and emotions, and it's 2024. It's our first episode of the year. We were able to bring you a lot of episodes last year, and we're looking forward to many more this year. So where we want to start off is life is choosing your words. Now, some of you, most of you, may or may not have chosen a word for the year. So Veronica and I are going to go over what we have chosen as our word for the year. So first, I'm going to pass it over to Veronica to go over what she has chosen as her word for the year, that we're going to live and breathe as we go into each and every day. So Veronica, I know you have lots of great thoughts and expressions and pent up emotion that you may want to get out. So I would love to hear your words and your thoughts for 2024.
Oh my goodness, so much. Okay, so first of all, Happy New Year to all of you lifers that are listening and tuning in. We definitely missed you. I actually missed seeing Neil on a camera like this and having a conversation like this, because it has been such a great opportunity for like growth and, in so many different aspects of our relationship, and hearing so much feedback from all of you. So thank you for tuning in. And it's very exciting because oh my gosh, I have so much to say about this for sure. And I'm trying to think of like all of the directions that I want to take. First of all, we celebrated our kind of anniversary with this podcast back in December 20th. We had every intention of recording. And then like Neil said, and we've said this in other podcasts before too, sometimes there's curveballs that are just thrown your way. For us, it was a lot of germs. Oh my gosh, I just feel like it has been a revolving door. As you know, we have 3 little ones. So honestly, it was just like one thing after another. And even for myself, I had like 2 rounds of antibiotics. I'm very grateful. It was something that I could heal from, but definitely I feel like, wow, like the germs have been strong this year. So for those of you that have been feeling it too, you're not alone. We're definitely feeling it. So life is choosing your words. Okay. We have said this a lot in a lot of other podcasts too, right? That words matter. When you're having conversations, when you're talking to yourself, when you're talking to like all the different relationships that you have in your life, or your work relationships, or whatever it might be. So words matter. And how coincidental, I guess, or perfect timing. We don't like using the word perfect, but I do feel like it's perfect timing with the new year. I hate with a capital H, very passionate about this. New year, new me. I said this last year. It really bothers me. And there was almost something triggering about January 1st rolling around, and being on a Monday too. I saw a meme, something about like, this new year, like they're not messing around. Like it's January 1st. It's on a Monday, which is typically like the start of a week, if you're going to start a new habit or whatever it is. But Neil and I are often like contrarian, we want to say. I didn't know that was a term before, but now I do. And there's something about sometimes when there's so many maybe people, or I don't know, some trends that are happening that like make me want to run in the other direction and just do my own thing. So there's something about January 1st now that I'm like, you know what? I either want to start before, or maybe I don't want to start at all. And I just don't want to feel that pressure. like the external pressure. If it's coming within me, fine, right? And I feel like that's when it truly matters. And that's when it's going to be more successful, is if it's like really intrinsic and it's coming from you and you really want to change for you, whatever that might be. Okay. So Neil and I have had this discussion. We did it last year. I'm so excited for Neil to talk about his word. And I honestly feel like we could have a whole podcast on just like even the last like few months of life and everything that happened too. But we talked about the word of the year. So that is something that I do truly love, because I feel like it carries throughout the year. It kind of refocuses you. It brings you back to like the foundation of, like why maybe you want to do some things, or a bit of like the meaning behind things, right? Which is different than maybe something that's a bit more surface level. So my word of the year, and it kind of came pretty quickly, I want to say, to me. Okay, that's a lie. I was going to say I don't like overthinking things. It's true. I don't like overthinking things, but do I overthink a lot? Certainly. I feel like I'm also talking a mile a minute in this podcast, because I feel like I just have so much to say. I missed all of you, and I missed having these conversations with Neil. So in any case, okay, drum roll, because I feel like I've been like talking about this for a lot of time now. My word of the year. Neil, do you want to give me a drum roll?
No, I'm not very good at it, but you can do this, okay?
Okay.
All right, we'll pause. Veronica,
For
what is
dramatic
your
effect.
word for 2024?
For dramatic effect, my word of the year is nourish. And there's something about hearing the word nourish, like even for me, I feel like I have like a visceral reaction to it, but like a very positive one. I hear nourish and I feel like, we talk about filling up your cup. It is kind of getting old. I will be honest. It is like my mantra almost in life. But there's something about nourish that it feels like filling up. Like it feels like, and the whole thing is that I want to nourish my soul. I want to nourish myself. I want to nourish the great relationships in my life. I just want nourishment. And I feel like for me, that's a really powerful word, because when I think of nourish, I think of like the necessity of nurturing, nourishment, to grow, to heal, to fill yourself up. So that is my word of the year, is nourish. And you can see, for those of you that are watching, I have not been properly nourished in the last couple months. As I mentioned, I was really sick. Like I haven't been that sick in a long time. And so you can see me on video. I was like, Neil, I'm ready to podcast. Let's just do it. And sometimes it's just showing up too, not synonymous with nourish, but this podcast truly like fills me up. It is nourishing. But if you see me on video, like, look at this, but like, whatever. It's being more kind to ourselves too. And it's just figuring out also of like, what are all those things that nourish me? So I'm really excited.
Yeah, and when I think of the word nourishment, right, it elicits a very like holistic, very, gentle, but very, you-centric type of feeling. At least that's for me. And I know like that's where it's coming from you. And I know like when you nourish yourself, right, or you nourish your mind, you nourish your thoughts, or whatever it is, like you said, your relationships, it brings everything in together to make your growth and your mindset where you want it to be and where you want it to go. And I really liked how you even mentioned how you want to nourish like past, right? Like in the sense of like you want it to, push you forward, not necessarily hold you back, and really nourish where you've come from or nourish all that you are so that you can propel yourself forward in whatever it is that you want to do. And so I really like that word. I think that it's both gentle, but at the same time, all encompassing of what it is that you want to get. Because I know in great detail of like where we're looking to go, and you and me individually as well. So I think that it's a very good word, and it's very full circle, because the words that we chose are what kicked off this podcast, like we said 1 year ago, right? The whole conversation of like, what is your word or your words for this year? And that's when you're like, okay, like we need to start recording this, because the words that we were saying to each other needed to be put out there, so that we can share these things. And really, we come from a mindset or thought process of sharing this, right? Like, we don't want this to be a here's what you should do. We don't want to be telling anybody what to do. We really just want to share what we think, stories, and really just be relatable in the sense of, maybe it starts to get you to think of words or ideas that can help you. And I know that we've heard that feedback. So, yeah, that is a very lovely word, and I'm looking forward to seeing how that comes to fruition this year.
I love hearing your summary of that. You just say it so nicely. But here's the thing. So if you can just picture this like strikeout image of like new year, new me, because I threw that in the life is garbage last year. So what I'm saying this year is new year, nourished me. I already
Lovely.
feel good about that.
Yeah. Even like when you just say it, it just feels lovely. It feels, warm. It feels just kind, right? All those things that we've said we want to be, to ourselves. We want to be to our relationships. We want to be to whatever it is that is meaningful in our lives. That word just encompasses all of that. So I really like it.
And I am excited for you to share your word of 2024 with everyone, because as soon as you said it, those of you that know me probably will have a really good laugh about this and wonder if Neil chose this word with like me inspired almost, but very excited. So maybe Neil, can you remind everyone of like last year, which I feel like was the foundation to almost all of our podcasts, many of our conversations, and brought us back and re-grounded us, I feel like, throughout the year. And then
Yeah.
we'd love to hear your new one.
Okay. So last year, what I was focusing on, and I guess it was 3 words. I couldn't choose one. I could have summarized it maybe, but I really went with myself, my health, and my wealth. Those were my 3 things. And, I really feel that I was able to achieve a lot of those areas, or sorry, I was able to achieve all 3 of those areas, but I was able to achieve a lot in those areas, right? And looking back on all the things that I've put into those areas, this is part of it. I was able to achieve a lot of great things last year. So yeah, those were the words that kicked us off in this podcast, pre 2023, and that was December 20th, 2022. And so, we were sitting there, wanting to sort of get an episode recorded to end off last year. And like we said, it never came to fruition, but, we said we need to pick our words for this year. And we sort of, I think you brought it up, and I said, okay, I'll think about it. And then I came down, I said, I got it. It just came to me. Okay. And I think this may raise a few eyebrows until I explain it. I think this may make people laugh when you think about it, when you start to think about people that may know Veronica in personal details. But my word of 2024, no dramatic effect here, my word that I chose is math. Okay? Now, let me explain, bless you, by the way. Let me explain why I chose the word math. Okay? And when you think of math, I'm pretty sure the majority of people will think of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Right? Those, I think, are the 4 basic math that most of us would think. Those of us who may have a more mathematical brain may go into more equations or more sophisticated math. But we're going to stick with the basics for this year. And so for me, what I wanted to think about and why I chose that word is because I want to add things to my life that make me feel good. I want to take away or subtract things from my life that I don't need anymore. I want to divide the time that I do have for the things that are most important to me. And I want to multiply my free time to give to the things that are on the top of my list. And so when you think of those words, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and you start to break it down into how that really applies to your choices, how that applies to your time, your energy, and all the things that we have mentioned, have brought to the table in these conversations, I really thought that's how I want to think about each and every day going into it, is how can I pick, how can I add, how can I subtract, how can I divide everything. And if you've listened to anything in last year's, balance is not a word that can be achieved. And I really work with the word synergy, right? So I can't divide equally, right? There's going to be leftovers or remainders or whatever you want to say. But when there's synergy between the time that you divide, you really start to achieve a lot more, likeness of what you're doing, right? You feel like, okay, like I'm doing the best I can, things are working, and the synergy is always flexible, it's always moving. So for those of you who may have laughed when I first said it, yes, my word for 2024 is math.
I find it so brilliant. And I have never been so inspired by math or loved math or heard such a loving example of math before. So I love that so much. And I was like, yes, that will be so grounding, I think, in 2024 for me too. And I think that's also the thing, is that, like, just choose a word that makes you feel inspired right now. It doesn't necessarily have to last for 365 or four, whatever, however many days. Here we go with that.
We have
362.
366 this year. We
Oh
have an
my
extra
gosh.
one.
Okay, see, there you go. There is a case in point about
We
math.
have an additional day this year
Okay.
to utilize our word.
Well, there you go. Okay, and if I'm doing the math, 363 days left in the year. But that's the thing. I think sometimes it's like, okay, I have to find the perfect word, or like, what does it mean anyways? You don't even have to tell anybody. Write it down for today, right now, say it out loud, whatever it is, what's inspiring you, go from there. I think that's the whole point, is just like, what is it? Is it like, one singular spoken word? Is it a math equation like Neil? Whatever makes you feel inspired, that keeps you going, that, like, ignites some sort of excitement or spark or passion or kindness or love or whatever that is. And, don't overthink it. It doesn't have to be something extravagant. It doesn't have to be a word that, has some super deep meaning, let's say, and it can have a super deep meaning for you, right? So if love is the first word that comes to your mind, you don't have to think like, oh, it's boring or whatever it is. Like, just choose whatever it is for you. It could even be your word of the day, right? You could be totally contrarian like Neil and I as well. And you know what? Maybe we're going to come on the next podcast and be like, we loved our word. Now we're either adding to it or changing it or whatever it is. And we're probably going to have a story that goes along with that. I was reflecting back on another podcast that we did, because the end of last year, like we said, there were not that many, but the plate analogy for me and that podcast, if you haven't heard that one yet, it's just one I think that I'm going to listen to myself again and remind myself that, of my boundaries, what I want to fill my plate with. What does your plate look like for right now for 2024? And what are you going to fill it with for the year? That was something that actually I loved. And it actually made me think of like nourishment. So, I think we can kind of keep this short and sweet in a sense. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts, Neil. I feel like, yes, I could go on for probably at least another hour just on like the last couple weeks. But yeah, I just want to keep saying nourish for me, like out loud over and over again.
Yeah, I think that, you know, we've said this before, the word just has to resonate with you. And you don't, again, have to share with anybody. And if you do, it doesn't need to make sense to anybody. The most important part for me is just picking something that, you can feel helps you. And whatever area you need help with, whether that's something that anybody else can understand, or if you want it to be a word that helps people understand, it just has to make sense to you. And we go back to life is being kind to yourself, right? Is when you choose that word, is to be kind, and like Veronica just mentioned, is you can be flexible with it. There's no rules. This is your word. This is your year. And however you want to start it and end it in 363 more days is totally up to you. And I just feel that like we're here to share our thoughts so that it can inspire others to be kind to themselves, to think about what it is that is important to them, but ultimately just to come here, be able to have a place where it can elicit thoughts and feelings, some laughs along the way, whether it's Veronica sneezing on the camera, but you know, and just have a connection, right? And just know that like if 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 one thing from this pushes you forward for this year, that's all we're really looking for. So yeah, there will be many more stories, I'm sure, as the year goes on, many more thoughts and ideas, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where Veronica's nourishment goes, where my math for the year goes, what I'm adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing. And I'd love to hear like what other people have chosen as their words, because it inspires us, it inspires others when you share, when you're just putting things out there for other people to connect with. So thank you, Veronica, for your word. Thank you for everybody for listening. We really appreciate you sticking with us through the last few months of not being around in this sense, in this platform, but we look forward to bringing you many more thoughts and ideas as we move along this year. And just know that life is more better with you, and we look forward to speaking with you next time.